You're listening to the best of the bravest. Interviews with the FDNY's elite. It's been a while since we've heard the best of the bravest on the show, and it's good to hear it again. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 288, ironically, right? Squad 288, episode 288 of the Mike DeMaven podcast. It's great to be doing the best of the bravest again. This is volume 47 tonight. I'll introduce my guest in a moment. But if you haven't checked out the El Gargiulo of WNBC. Need advice on how to start your podcast? Frustrated with the editing process? Can't find a voiceover guy? Hi, I'm Mike Colón, and I'm here to help. I'm the owner and founder of MC Media Editing Services, your premier consulting company for all things media, where I can offer you consulting advice on how to get started, and once you get started, editing, as well as voiceover work, all for a very reasonable price. If you want to reach me, you can contact me at 917-781-6189 or the email that you see listed here. I'm always available, and I'm always willing to help. Again, 917-781-6189. Why go to some giant consulting firm that's going to charge you an arm and a leg when you can just come to me? If you want to be stress-free, the way to go is to call MC. MC Media Editing Services, your premier consulting company. It's all right, Producer Vic, you were eager to get the word out, and I appreciate that. Now let's be eager to get the word out on our friend Joe Murray. If you're ever caught on the wrong end of the law, call Joe Murray. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer turned criminal defense attorney. With 15 years of experience in the NYPD from 1987 until 2002, he parlayed a successful career in the NYPD into an equally successful career as a criminal defense attorney. His website is jmurray-law.com, where you can reach him at 646-838-1702, or just email him at joe@jmurray-law.com. And special thanks to Joe, of course. I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time. I've been trying to get my next guest for a long time. And finally, tonight, we get to cross paths. My next guest ate flames and charged into any and all kinds of danger as a quarter-century member of the FDNY. He was sworn in during the spring of 1979, and Brooklyn was his base primarily, with stops at Engine, now Special Operations Command Squad 252, and Ladder Companies 175, 174, 21, and 102. He's promoted to captain in March of 1998 and would command the men of Ladder 102 from 1999 until 2003. Also taught for a while at the New York City Fire Academy before he retired in 2004. And that for this volume 47 of the best of the bravest interviews with the FDNY's elite is retired FDNY Captain Jim Graham. Cap, great to finally have you on the show. Welcome. How are you?
Good to meet you. Good to finally get this together, Mike. You know, I give you an A for effort. You were a very dogged guy to keep trying to get me to come on, and I ran out of excuses. But deep in my heart, I wanted to do this evening with you, and look forward to our conversation this evening.
I look forward to it too. It's been a long time coming. So, as we were talking about off the air, tell me about first where you grew up, and also you had an uncle on the FDNY, which played something of a role in you eventually coming on the job. He was one of the people that kind of played a role in you coming on the job. But where'd you grow up primarily?
Yeah, I grew up in Oceanside, out here on Long Island, and great childhood, very simple upbringing. I have a brother, John, and a younger sister, Mary, and unfortunately, we were young kids. I was around 10 years old. Our dad passed away. And, my mom had, the job of raising 3 kids by herself, And one of my uncles was a city farmer, my Uncle Bill Graham. And he stopped by. We were young kids, kind of figuring out everything. And he would bring these helmets over. My brother and I were like, well, look at these helmets. These are cool. Kind of planted a seed, and we'd get on our bicycles. A couple blocks away was the local firehouse, so we'd go and hang out over there, and that was kind of like the beginning. The hook was set. I was like, wow, look at this rig. This is unbelievable. We had a 1952 Aaron's Fox, and that was the sweetest rig going. They were historically in the fire department, in the FDNY, that Aaron's Foxes were for probably 10, 15 years, they were primary pumpers for the FDNY. So that kind of set the seed there as a young kid growing up, and spent a lot of time down there. And eventually, when I turned 18, I joined the volunteers in Oceanside, and it was just a great beginning, Still never thinking where where my life would take me in the fire department, in the fire service. But those were great times.
Absolutely. And as our mutual friend John Bushing pointed out, you're a Rockville Center guy. He was enthusiastic about that. Were you in the Rockville Center Volleys too at this time, or was that way later?
No, that came later on. I was in Oceanside Fire Department for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then I transferred over to Rockville Center. I had a lot of my buddies that I was hanging around with. They were all Rockville Center volunteers, so I joined Reliance Hose 3 in Rockville Center, and as they say, the rest is history. That's where I met John. He's a good guy, man.
Yeah, solid guy,
Yeah,
good man,
yeah.
good man. And was in transit rescue, the transit police, of course, ESG with the NYPD.
Yes,
before I
yes, it
continue.
was.
This is the Best of Bravest, Volume 47, Episode 288 of the Mike DeRaven podcast. Hi to Joe Maliga and Darren Phillips, who's stuck in Canadian rush hour traffic right now. I didn't know such a thing existed, but it does. And Gary Stadler, who was asking, ironically, about Rockville Center and Oceanside. So I hope that answers your question partially there, Gary. Thanks for tuning in. So, of course, you also had, I believe it was your father-in-law at the time. Was it your father-in-law, or was it the father of a friend of your wife's, I believe?
No, I was in the volleys, and I was dating my wife at the time, and really wasn't happy with what I was doing. And before I found out about the city fire department, and my wife's dear friend, her dad, this guy Jim McNally, was we're over at their house in the backyard, and come over here, I want to talk to you. So I'm like, what did I do wrong? And he comes over here, he goes, you've been dating her for a while. You're getting serious with her? He said, yeah. I said, yeah. He says, hands me the application for the fire department. And I'm like, what's it? He says, just fill it out. It's a great job. I think you'll really enjoy the career. So I was taken back. I said, I looked up to this guy. He said, he's giving me this application. So I really put all my energy into, filling out, taking the written exam, taking the physical. That physical was like, they call it the Superman physical. It was like a decathlon. But I just trained really hard. We were getting married, and I was like, I'm going to, do the best I can. And it worked out great. I just, I hit it right. I was like 940 on the list. So, I realized my dream within like 6 months of the list coming out, So it was tremendous, just tremendous. A lot of credit goes to him for, thinking enough of me to give me that application,
Of course, it paved the way for what would come and carved out
Sure.
a 25-year journey that, of course, was a thrill a minute, as many FDNY guys have told me. So shout out to him, because if not for him, who knows what direction my life would have taken.
Unfortunately, he passed away in this past year. He was a great guy.
Sorry.
Yeah. And his son, Jim, is he's the division commander, the 11th Division. He's a great guy as well. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. So our careers were crossed over the years too. The nice part about working with, getting the application, from the father. Years later, it was maybe like a summer or two before I got promoted to lieutenant. He's covering as a captain in 15th Division, and he's working in 175 with us. So, just to have that opportunity to work a couple of months with him on my back step that really was like, this is pretty cool, man. I'm working with this dude, It was, he was, towards the end of his career, and, we're still doing a lot of fire duty. So it's like, I'm watching this guy, and I'm like, this guy still got it, man. It's pretty cool,
Yeah. It's great to see those senior guys that are into the job that, even with all that time on, they're still so passionate. They're not jaded. And not only that, they like teaching young guys. You really do value those salty veterans. Those are the true salty veterans right there.
Absolutely.
They're crusty in the sense that they got a lot of time on, but they're not curmudgeons either. They're happy to teach it.
I mean, he came out of 33 truck in the Bronx as a lieutenant. He spent a lot of time up there. So the guy had a wealth of knowledge, So
they were working.
When he's past it, and he's telling, whether we're drilling in the kitchen or we're out, in the field drilling or doing something. When he had had something to say, everybody's ears perked up pretty quick, and you paid attention, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, was a good guy.
Hmm. Yeah. I remember hearing that years ago in relation to hockey about Steve Yzerman. Darren McCarty, who played with him on the Detroit Red Wings, was saying, Steve Yzerman was never the type of guy to be rah rah. But when he did have something to say, everybody stopped what they were doing and listened. And the same is true in the fire service, not just with guys like that. But I imagine those early years at 252, there's a lot of guys like that you could draw from that. Even if they weren't rah rah type guys, when they had something to say, even if it was in passing, you stopped what you were doing. You tried to soak up as much of it as possible.
Oh, sure, sure. 252 was just a tremendous place to start your career. Uh, we went through Proby school, 6 weeks or so. We were out in the field, and it was a small response area. We had 26 first two boxes, but the fire duty was, was crazy. And I remember the first couple of fires, I was like, what am I doing here? You're backing up the nozzle guy, and everybody's talking like we're talking here right now, and I'm down on the floor, licking the floor, looking for some air, and guys are walking past you. After a while, I was like, what am I, what are these guys doing that I don't, and after a while, the more fires you went to, you picked up on the operations, and it was a blast there. There was a group of us there. I'd say the first year I was there, we probably had 9 probies come to the house. So it was a big turnover. And the captain there at the time, Jerry Hopkins, was great guy. Didn't say, once again, going back to when somebody, opens up their mouth to tell you something, you listened up real quick. And I worked in his groups, and he was a tough fireman, And we're going in there. I'm like, yeah, we're going in there. I'm like, okay, here we go. But no, it was 252. There was some tremendous guys on the back step, and they broke us in. It was, everybody was assigned to engine companies back then. When I first came on, you came out of Proby school, everybody went to an engine company because they had a fatal fire. I think like the year before they started hiring off all this. The guy was in a truck company, and unfortunately he died in a fire. So the job changed everything. Everybody works in an engine, and it was good to work in an engine. By the time I went to the truck, and then by the time I got promoted, I felt pretty rounded as a firefighter. I felt confident that I spent enough time in an engine. I knew my way around engine company, and then in a truck. Yeah, it was great. But those were my first years in 252. Will always have a sore spot in my heart. Great memories there. I worked with some great guys.
No, of course. Yeah, it's a 3-year stretch there, and people, I think now, and I've seen this, and it's important to highlight this. Oh, well, when they were formulated or they were moved to a squad in 1998, Von Essen labeled a lot of these engine companies at the time as underutilized. And that may have been the case in 1997, 1998 when they became squads. Doesn't mean it was always the case. And in the 70s and 80s, in a place like Bushwick, Brooklyn, 252 was busy. That's definitely not the case. You guys were working. No such thing as underutilized back then.
Yeah. No, it was a great spot. And then, companies were right on top of one another. 277, 112 they were a couple of blocks away. But, 252, we were in an isolated part of Bushwick. So we would get the boxes and operate. It could be, for a few minutes before a truck would come in. So we were on our own. So a lot of times, bring a set of irons up, got, trucks, by the time the trucks got there, they're like, get out of the way. But, the officers would say, somebody grab the irons, because, we had incidents where we were by ourselves for those few minutes and, pop the doors, till we could get in. But that was a unique place, and it's predominantly rope frames, fast moving fires. You got the fire up in a cockloft, and it was taken off. It, sure enough, would be a multiple alarm. But, you learn real quick, get in, hit the, put one floor out, let's go, second floor. All right, you got the nozzle. It just, you learned real quick. Within that first year, I felt pretty comfortable as a member of that company.
I can imagine.
It was good times. Good
Yeah.
times.
Before I go to 175, is there a fire from that 3-year stretch that stands out to you? There was a lot of them, but is there one in particular that stands out to you?
It just not really. They were just a ton of them. Like it was, like I said, row frames. No, not really. Nothing. Nothing that I could say like that was like a crazy good job. They were all good jobs. And I mean, you watched the other companies. You watched the guys in 112. You watched the guys in 175. We're stretching a line. And, I saw that truck work, and I was like, that's where I want to be. I want to, I want to get over to the truck for sure. And, that was guys that, most of the guys that came with me to 252, I'd say 75% of the guys did almost their whole career there, and they stayed when they became a squad, and they were all solid guys,
Mm-hmm.
they just, I mean, I wasn't there, but I could just tell, from, talking to those guys, they're like, nah, this is great. We were just happy to become squad members, Richie Sweeney, a couple of those guys, and it was just, it was good for them. But I had my heart set on going to a truck, and I did my time, and captain at the time, you got to do 3 years before he'd sign your transfer paper. So I said, all right. The third year came up, put my paper in. I said, Cap, really like to go. I had been taking details over to 175 for a while, and the captain over there, Tom McNulty, was another unbelievable individual. And he's like, yeah, Jim, I'd like to have you come over. So took a little bit of a while to finally get there, but once I got to New Jersey Avenue, I was just like, that was my dream spot at that time,
And I think out of all the spots that you had, that's the one that you spent the most time in. You were there almost 10 years. You were there 9 years, 82 to 91.
Yeah. And, we started out on New Jersey Avenue as a single truck. And we were going fires. Night tour would be 30 runs, maybe 2-3 jobs. We wound up being the first truck company in Brooklyn to get a hearse tool. So our location of quarters was right at the end of the Interborough Parkway, Jackie Robinson. So we would be up on the Interborough doing a lot of automobile accident extrications, what have you. So that drew another part into, besides fire duty, the forcible entry. I mean, the hearse tool work was pretty good, and we became pretty proficient with it over time. And we'd go to other parts of Brooklyn. We'd be special called, rescue was out somewhere. So it was like, it opened our eyes to like, oh, this, some of the guys left and went to rescue companies, and it was a good time, really good time. And going there, it was just, you had the opportunity to work with some real senior guys. We were just sponges, man. You couldn't get enough of it. And, we would go out drill on a day tour if we weren't doing BI or hydrants or something. Let's go. There were so many vacant buildings that, we had them in our backyard, so we could drill, anytime, and it was just, all we wanted to do was become better at our trade, whether it was roof operations, forcible entry, it was great. The great bosses. McNulty was the great, what a great captain. Another guy didn't say too much, but when he spoke up, okay, Cap, had a couple of crazy fires with him. Another guy, Bobby Majeski, was a lieutenant there, real quiet guy. Another tremendous fire officer. Other guy, Kenny Dolan. We became real good friends. He was a tough guy on the fire floor, but, another guy who I predominantly worked with Kenny, and as fate would have it, he had been a fireman at 102, and I was able to see him, and he's like, "You're at 102 now, Jimmy. That's, that was a great house. That's when I was there. Dennis Cross, blah blah blah." It was just funny how your life, your career winds through, and how um, things in the beginning of your career and to the end of the career, they all kind of mesh.
Full circle.
Yeah. It's really cool, really cool. So,
Oh yeah, I would say.
Yeah, 175 was. I'm telling you, that was, like I said, with Kevin and Louie. I saw a lot of sunrises in East New York back in the day. Just the fire duty. The crack addiction was crazy there. You'd be back at the same building maybe 2-3 times in a 24-hour period. But one of the real fires that I like to talk about was we had a fire in 1988. So I'm getting pretty close to getting promoted, and we get a fire one night, a couple blocks from the quarters, and they're telling us, you're going to work. Warren Fuchs might have been working aboard, but I got to tell this guy Dave Gianelli's driving, and we make the turn into the fire block, and it's like 4-story empty, and there's a ball of fire at the front door. And as we pull up past the front of the building, an exposure force side, you can see smoke in the top pushing, and we can see people at the top floor windows. So set up the rig. I go up the aerial, and it's like a family of 6-7 people right there. And it turns out they're in the stairwell. Now, we got fire in this first floor stairwell. It's coming up. And back then, the building owners, they would padlock the bulkhead doors on some of these buildings. So these people, these poor souls, were going up. The doors padlocked. I got them all there. I'm giving 1045s. Guys came up behind me. We're passing kids out. Make a long story short, we get them all out. A couple of us got meritorious awards. Don't think anything of it. Then 2 years later, I got called down to testify in a trial against these guys are arsonists. They said a couple of different fires, and you're waiting to go into court and testify. It's like, I'd rather go to any fire in the world than have to go to a trial thing. But what was cool about it, Mike, the ADA brings these people in the room, and I'm sitting there with 2 other guys, and I'm like, who are these people? And the ADA, he goes, these are the people that you rescued. And it was a couple of years later, and I was like, wow, this was, he gave us some time with them. It's a woman and a couple of kids, and they were much older. And, he told them that these are the guys that were there that night. And it was, what? To me, that was the proudest moment to see these people, and just, spend, having an emotional moment with those people. It's pretty cool, see how emotional they were. And it's like, you kind of forget it, you move on. It's like, and the ADA was laughing. He goes, I said, man, you got me with that one. That was pretty cool, So that was a pretty proud moment. Yeah.
Well, I don't have to ask you at the end of the show later on what was the most uplifting job you went to, because that was it there, my friend. It doesn't get much more uplifting.
I probably jumped the timeline here.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's a great story.
It was really, really, that was a really cool moment.
I'll say. That's terrific, because and I've always thought this, the more police and fire I talk to on this show, where do you see a lot of messed up things on the job? Unfortunately, yes. It's tough, especially across a long career. But there's always moments like that remind you, not you, but speaking generally, why you do that job. Those are the moments that that make it worthwhile. You could have been to 6 terrible calls before that, but to have a moment like that makes it all worth it, Cap.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
that's it. And again, thank you for sharing that story. We're talking with Captain Jim Graham here on the Best of the Bravest, Volume 47 of the Best of the Bravest interviews with the FDNY's elite. Before I move on, I got a couple questions here in the live chat that we can highlight, Vic. A couple of them are from Mike Thomas. He wants to know, because you came on in 1979, were you in the same Pro B class as Chief Jay Jonas or no?
No, Jay wasn't in my class, no.
Oh, okay.
And in April 79, I don't know when Jay, I think Jay was like maybe towards the end of the year.
I think so. I think you're correct. And that might have been November, December. But yeah, he was actually saying that the other day on Getting Salty. And the other question Mike has is in relation to 175, was it always a tiller rig?
It still is to this day, yeah.
Still is to this day.
You have to realize that, that response area, we had some really narrow streets and, we needed that tiller, to maneuver those areas,
Yeah. I remember Dan Potter telling some stories about driving the tiller. I don't know how you guys did it, man, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, riding the tiller, I'll tell you, it was, you first go over to the truck, you got the can for, 6-8 months till you figure that out. It was always like, why don't you learn the can first before you jump in the tiller? So that was the senior guys giving you that. But I remember the first time going up in the tiller and, it was a day tour, and they're like, Kenny Dole's like, all right, Jimmy, you get up in the tiller. We're going out, for the meal or something. And Bobby Turner's, he's got the tiller. He's hooked on with a life belt on the back. And New Jersey Avenue was really tight quarters. So you're pulling out, and Harry Davis is driving, and he's like, just track on the light. Don't overcommit with the wheel. And, after a couple of days getting up there practicing, the first night, okay, you're up there, you got it. So it was pretty cool. But the OV is a tough position, besides, driving the tiller, when you get to a fire scene, you're on your own, and, you gotta size up. How am I getting to the rear? There's a million things going through your mind, and it's, you really, that's a tough spot, the OV for sure. But the tiller, the first time we went out, Harry, God rest his soul, he died from 9/11 cancer. He had transferred to Squad 18, but he would drive that rig like a Maserati, and as fast as we, like, boom, back this way, that way. We back into quarters. He backed up as fast as if we were going to a second alarm first or something. And it was like, man, don't hit the coat rack, don't hit the door. You never hear the end of it if you hit something. So, and he'd get off the rig, he'd be in the back. He'd look in the back. He'd give you that Cheshire grin, like, "All right, you got in, no problem. You got it." So he was a great guy, Harry Lee. Miss him a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, my introduction years ago to the tiller was ironically an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer was in the back.
That's a great one, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing back there, Kramer?
That's where I first saw it. I think and tell me, correct me if I'm wrong. If the driver was turning left at the front, in the rear, you had to turn the tiller right, correct? It was
right. Yeah, you got to swing. You got to swing out the back and then recover. And you had to, back then too, in East New York, or anywhere in the city really, the cars, they park right on the corner. So it's got to be, you don't want to be hitting, you're swinging out, but you got to bring it back quick enough so you're not bouncing off of a car on the corner there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know how you guys did it. Hats off. I would have lost years off my life with how hard I would have been sweating trying to back that thing into quarters.
Yeah. And then, of course, you work on a 4th of July night, like 6x9 night, and you're in the tiller, and, they're shooting bottle rockets at you, like bing, 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 bing. You're up there, and it was a busy night to begin with, but it was like a war zone going through,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Mogadishu
But,
comes to Brooklyn.
it's something like that. Exactly. Yeah. But those years, I'll tell you, there was a lot of fire duty, and we saw everything, a little bit of everything back then,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when there was when crack was crazy. And I told a story with Kevin and Louie that these guys they would take the box springs off a bed and bolt them to the wall. They have like 2x12s holding the door shut so you couldn't get in. They'd be burning one another out. You're forcing the door. You couldn't get in the door, so we're breaching the wall. Excuse me. And the springs of the mattresses, they got charged with batteries. So you're breaching through the wall, and the Halligan's popping out of your hand, like, what the hell's going on? They had, like a bed of nails at a window, or they cut the hole, inside you're coming in off a fire escape. You always checked, for, you had a floor there, but, they'd cut a hole and, cover it with a rug or a piece of linoleum, something. So you really had to be careful. But, they were very innovative individuals, these crack dealers. And,
Oh, yeah.
But the fire duty, it was a tough neighborhood. I always felt bad for the people that lived there. But from a fire standpoint, you learn your trade real quick.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't matter how many guys I talk to. And I remember having this conversation with Jeff Cool a little while ago on the show, where the term ghetto firefighting, right? People from outside the tri-state area or any kind of urban area may not look at that term with the utmost respect, and it's not meant as a put down. Every guy that talks about firefighting in a difficult neighborhood, that ghetto firefighter with the kind of buildings, the vacancies and whatnot, you're saying it from a standpoint of love. You were honored to work there. You were happy to work there. And, as you're telling me right now, I mean, those were some of the best years, and that's not to discredit the other stints that you had. Those were some of the best years of your career. It's an honor to be a ghetto firefighter.
The best years of anybody's career is when you're on a back step.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the boss. You're in the back. Yeah. You could ask anybody from a chief of the department to a Tommy Richardson. You ask anybody at any rank, what were the best times of your career, and the guys will tell you that was the back step. Just great times, great memories, great friendships that were formed. It's just to this day, I'm still friends with the guys that I worked with. They're like part of your family. I watched all their kids. They watch all my kids grow up. They've been to our weddings. We laugh, we cry together. It's just, we still, every Saturday morning, we have group text. Guys that I studied with, it started during COVID. And, we did it for a while. And one of the guys says, "Oh, let's stop." I said, "Why are we going to stop? We don't see one another. So this is our way of Saturday morning, all good in Rockwell Center. That's all you got to say." Mm-hmm. Or if, my grandson was born Saturday, sent out a text to all of them, batting in the 9-hole. The stats here, the stats for he made Team Graham, and, gave all the particulars, and guys were just all great. That's awesome, Jim, blah, blah, blah. It's home run. So to this day, we still keep it going. It's over 40 years, It's great.
You never break those bonds. But it's funny you say that, because I asked two chiefs I work for, Chief Bill Johnson and Chief Ron Paisani over at the West Haven Fire Department, that same question in different conversations. Two great guys who I really enjoy working for, where I said, listen, you guys are deputy chiefs now. Across your career, Chief Johnson's got almost 40 years, Chief Paisani 30. What was your favorite rank? And they both said the same thing. We love being on the line. Grade A firefighter was the best rank. That's the time. Not that they don't enjoy what they're doing now, but that was the time that they most enjoyed, when you're on the back step, when you're on the line, when you're with the guys.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
So I find that interesting you said that.
Absolutely. And we all went our different ways. Who got promoted, lieutenant, captain, chief. We always kept that together. Well, where'd you work? Oh, you worked with so and so. No, yeah, I know that knucklehead. And it's just great friendships. Great friendships. Yeah, but
absolutely.
that, New Jersey Avenue, I think in 86, 85, 86, we moved to Bradford Street. So that was a transition. We were New Jersey Avenue. We were a single truck company, and I had worked in a single engine company in 252. So now we moved to Bradford Street, is now a double house, and we're moving in with engine 332, which was a single engine. We're moving to the new quarters, brand new quarters, and that was a transition period. We didn't want to go there. 332 didn't want to go there. So you brought two great companies together. And, in the beginning, it was a little rocky, but, we called it the Harmony Hut. You got two companies with great pride. Well, we do it this way, we do things this way, this and that. But over time, if you look at that company now, I'm at it at 32 years. When I got promoted in 91, that is a company, people looking to put their kids there, that's always had great bosses. The guys who came through there, you got guys that are staff chiefs now, from what I understand. But, the history that house built over years is phenomenal. It's right up there with some of the great houses on the job.
Oh, yeah.
Which is something you look back and get a lot of pride over that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Understand that completely.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So that brings us to April of 1991, when you made lieutenant, and that was your first step, of course, in becoming a boss. Ultimately, would culminate in captain. How long before that did you start studying for the lieutenant's exam? How many years was it prior?
Oh gosh, we studied for probably over 4 years,
Mm.
and we took our promotion exam in the spring of 86, maybe. Anyway, we were studying. We were going by attack. We're meeting two days a week on our own with our group, and we took the exam, and we did. Everybody did really well, and they wound up throwing a test out. There was some controversy over some questions that were allegedly given out, this and that, and we wound up sitting for the test again in October of that year, and I didn't do as well as I did on the first test, so that kind of was tough to swallow. But over time I said, what, maybe God had a plan for me, and I had to wait a while to get promoted, which was fine. No big deal. But we studied a long time. It's a big commitment. When you start to study, your family, it impacts your family. If you're not home, let's face it, when we were firemen, you're not making a lot of money. So you got to hustle a side job to make ends meet. And, I have a wife and 3 kids. And, my wife, she made a lot of sacrifices for me studying, as everybody's wives did. But once studying was a great thing for me. I would always encourage guys, you get on a job, go buy yourself a set of books, start studying. Studying is going to make you a better fireman. It's something to learn in the fire service constantly, so if you got 2 years in a job or 22 years in a job, you stay current with the books, what's going on, and it helps you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was. I was glad that I got in with the group of guys I studied with. They all made us. They made me better, because you didn't want to let the group down. We had like study cards. You'd make up cards, and you sit around a table with the guys, and they're like, "That card, that's a terrible question. They're gonna fine you. Give me $1 fine, 50-cent fine." One guy collected the money, and after the promotion exam, we had all this cash. I'm gonna take the wives out for dinner. So it was back and forth. To this day, it was like, who's got the study cards? We were all together in October. We got together for a gathering, and some of the guys hadn't seen in years. And the first thing at the dinner that evening was like, who's got the study cards? Are they still around? One of the guys goes, yeah, I got them. I think they're in my garage, But it was, those guys made me better, better fireman, helped me a lot, going up the ranks for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You need
yeah.
those guys in your corner. And you never forget those guys, as you said. And like you said, it's a good group of guys to get promoted with because those exams aren't easy. As I've covered with many a fire officer before, you're now going from, and that's not to say that as a firefighter, you don't care about your fellow man. Of course you do. But now as a fire officer, you're officially responsible for your crew, for everybody that's with
Yes.
you on that engine or on that truck. So, to have those people hammering you in a good way during those study sessions, that's what's going to build you up to when you are in command. You know what to do. You can be confident in what you're doing. And that transitions into, of course, you go in a ladder 21 in 91, not too long after you got promoted to where, and again, this is a conversation I've had with previous guys that have talked about this. You could work everywhere else, and each borough has its own flavor and things that you really love and come to love about it over time. But when you get to Manhattan, it's a whole different ball game. So at this point, you'd been a Brooklyn guy. Now you're in Manhattan with about how much of a game changer was that for you as a new lieutenant?
Game changing you hit the nail right on the head, Mike. I went in. I knew that, having spent 12 years as a fireman, I knew my capabilities. But becoming a boss, it's not about you anymore. It's about the guys that you're working with. And going to Midtown Manhattan was a humbling experience. I say that because in Bushwick in East New York, tallest buildings 3-4 stories. Now now you're in a 40-story building, and it's a whole. We're all one job, but it's like 5 different departments. The Midtown, the SOP was totally different than what we were doing in Brooklyn, and it was an eye opener. I went there, I was like, whoa, Now, you have the responsibility. Every boss, your goal at the beginning of the tour is the guys who start the tour with you, they go home at the end of the shift. And so that kind of, that was, an important thing for me, as any young lieutenant was. But just going there, and it's like, you're not in Kansas anymore. This is like a whole different show, But I had the good fortune. Third Division had some great bosses. Chief Dunn, Vinny Dunn. I was talking with him in the last day or two about, being there and how humbling it was as an officer going into, somebody's buildings and fire duty, whatnot. The episode that Jay Jonas did on the Macy's fire brought, and it just like flipped a switch. I can remember that day of the Macy's fire where we lost Walter Smith. I was a young probie in the field, only about maybe a month, and that was like my first fatal that we lost a guy. It just listening to Jay the other night, I was like, man, that just brought back like the beginning of my career. And it was like, I don't know what made me think about it. But then years later, as a young lieutenant, here I am working in 24 truck. And we go to Macy's, saying, rubbish fire. So we go down and the Engine 1, 7th Battalion, you could smell something, and got the search rope. We passed a couple doors. I said, let's hook off on this search rope on this. And I guess the smoke got so bad so quick. And it turned out it was a dumpster. It wasn't much of anything, but it was like, whoa, it got your attention real quick. And, you're going into some of these buildings. I mean, it was a dumpster fire. We put it out, and, we wrapped it pretty quick, but went back to quarters, and I was like, this, you got to look at the whole different ball game and how you're going to operate. And, I always tell the guys, and my study group guys, I said, no, you work in Midtown Manhattan, you don't leave the rig without a search rope. you know, you're crazy if you think you don't need it, you know. But Manhattan, I went there kicking and screaming. You know, I thought I was going up to Harlem or the Bronx or something, but I learned so much in my years there in Midtown. Learned how to be a boss, which that's a tough transition from fireman to lieutenant. And yeah, I worked with some great guys. Tommy Healy was the captain of 21 at the time. He was an old 175 guy. He was a charter member, 175. So I had been bouncing around, doing a couple of vacations in Midtown, and I saw Tommy at a racket. And he's like, "Jimmy, when the guys get promoted, why don't you come over here?" And I was like, just still trying to feel myself out, Tommy. But after living out of the back of your car or riding in the subway with your duffel bag, I said, you know what, this might be a good spot. And I went over to 21. It was, good bunch of guys. I enjoyed my time there. You know, we had not a lot of fire duty, but the guys were just really solid guys. I was glad I spent some time there. And, a couple of crazy stories there. We had the stuck elevator one night. It's like a Sunday morning. Who could, it was in the garment district. I'm like, who could be in this elevator? You know, so like there's an insurance company would drive around. They come in, they would open the doors. So we go in, and you could hear the bell ringing in the shaft. So I said, let's start our way up. Tell one guy, the roof guy, go up, make sure we get the power off. And we get to this elevator car. It's between like the 6th and 7th floor. And you can hear these guys, they're screaming in the car. I'm like, what are you guys doing there? So, got the power off. They dropped the ladder down. One of the guys went down, opened the hatch, and there's like 5 guys in this elevator. Well, on the weekends, they were using it for like a nightclub or something. And
of course,
this guy, Colón O'Neill, he opens the hatch. He's laughing. I'm like, Colin, what's going on? He goes, you're not going to believe this. The first guy comes out. He's a big guy. And we get him up. And then he goes, there's a lot of big guys in this elevator. I said, big? You're big. The next guy, make a long story short, there are like 4 or 5 guys in them. And they're huge. And they're like, how long have you guys been in here? We don't know. It must have been like a half an hour, 40 minutes before we got the call. And, they were all, we got them laughing with one another. They were all panicked when we got there. By the time we got them up and out, now we got them laughing and, just took the edge off them. But we came back, it was like an hour, 20 minutes later. I'm like, this one's going down. This is one of the funniest things I ever did. And the guys, we were howling, laughing, And now it's like, Sunday morning, like 5:30 in the morning, we came back from this thing. We were howling, laughing, having a cup of coffee in the kitchen. Like, did you believe this? It was cool. It was really cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But 21 was good place. I had the Super Bowl Sunday fire on Park Avenue. I think it was like,
what was this?
I forget. This was in 90. Hang on a minute, Michael. Let me see if I can find it.
I don't think I remember this job. I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah. It was the Chase Bank fire. Mm-hmm. I had gotten a sign there in 92. I bounced around for a while. The Chase Bank fire was Super Bowl Sunday, and we get the call. We go as an extra truck on the all hands, and we pull up. It was Park Avenue. I forget the cross streets. I'm not really sure. Fire's out like 10 windows on the 7th floor. Wow. And we go in, and we get assigned to the search and evacuation post, which is above the fire. So we're heading up, and we're coming up a stairwell, and there's Rescue 1, Steve Cassani's the boss, and who else could possibly be with him but Mr. Henry Millay and Bruce Newberry, and they popped the door and it's like a wall of fire, and I says, whoa, and they're like, we need a line here. I said, there's no standpipes here. In this stairwell, you got to go over to another staircase. Anyway, I said, we're going up above, Steve. I said, if you're going to open this door, you let me know. So we'll find an area of refuge as we're going up. But there was a lot of fire at that building. And Hank and Bruce wound up getting medals at that fire. Like a guy came down in an elevator that serviced the fire floor, and the doors opened up. And Hank and Bruce were able to get the guy out. It was an unbelievable fire. Jeez. And it was yeah. But the guys did a great job.
Absolutely.
Great job. Yeah, another one, search ropes. You better have search ropes. You got an open floor, 10, 15,000 square foot cubicles, smoke condition, and we just took turns, all right? One floor at a time, we'll take turns making searches, and we didn't get a taste of the fire really, but we did a lot. We wound up getting some people out, office workers, night crew, cleaning crews, whatnot. So, but that was some fire.
I've been chasing Bruce Newberry forever. I've been trying to get that guy on the show for a minute now.
He would be tremendous.
Oh,
Bruce is a great guy.
Yeah,
that was the whole Freeport connection.
Yeah.
Hank, Bruce, and the Hash.
Yep, Paul Hashagen.
Yeah. Paul's a good man.
Mm-hmm. All three of those guys, absolute gems.
Yeah. But so I was there three years so I was in 21 from 92 to 94. So I was 3 years in the third division, and captain's test. I took the captain's test, and I didn't do as well as I thought I would, but I was like, I gotta make the move, go back to dear old Brooklyn, So
174.
Put my paper in for 174, Snyder Island, great spot, and that was, another one I stepped in. I stepped in it real good, getting that spot, and those were 4 years. That are always special to me. Besides being, a fireman, those being on the back step we talked about earlier. But 174 was that was another one that was just coming into its own. Roger Beal was the captain. I had worked with Roger. He was a fireman 120. And when I got there, it was just like, we just hit it off so great. Guys you want to emulate as a fire officer. Roger was that guy, just how to handle a company, and, fire duty was one thing, but, juggling. I watched him from afar. That's how, because I knew I was on a captain's list, like being a lieutenant's one thing, being a captain is a whole nother animal. And I watched him conduct, himself in those 4 years I was there. And I was like, yeah, if I could be half this guy, I'll be doing pretty damn good,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier, guys have told me, to make the jump from lieutenant to captain than it is firefighter to lieutenant, because lieutenant to captain, the general consensus I get, not to say that the rank isn't without challenges, I'm sure it is okay, been there, done that. I have my feet under me to a degree as a boss. I got my beak wet in that sense. As a captain now, it gets a little easier because you've been a boss for a little bit. In your case, it was 4 years as a lieutenant before the jump to captain in March of 1998.
Yeah. Lieutenant, my years there, that was like the soft spot for me. I just felt so comfortable as a boss now. I had the 3 years under my belt from Midtown. And coming back to Brooklyn, that came second nature as far as the fire duty went. And, I was surrounded by some great guys in that company. They were just from senior guys to the young guys coming up. They were a sponge. They just wanted to learn and, as a boss, that's all, you're looking for is guys that want to be here. And, we had a tremendous team of guys. And, I had a guy, Wally Blum was my chauffeur. That guy, I said it on Getting Salty. Yeah, he was one of my top 5 guys, that, we were just on the same page every time we went out the door. I just got to the point where I knew where he was going to be. I knew what he was going to do. He was that good a guy, and I was just glad to have him. He's a guy that, to me, he should have been a rescue guy. He should have went to rescue too. But he stayed there. And, I always said to Roger, I said, how come he's not your chauffeur? He goes, he could stay with you. I got so-and-so. But while he was a tremendous individual, and to this day now, I had guys that are chief officers now that were firemen when I was there. And just to see those guys continue in the traditions, it was pretty cool. We had some great guys there. But, it was, when I went there, it's like 174. It was 120, 111, 113, 123. I went to 174. I said, this is an unbelievable place. All occupied work. 175 was mostly vacant buildings back in the the 80s. This was all occupied work. And Roger took that company and put it on the map. And between Roger and the guy who, Patty, I'm having a senior moment. Between those two guys, Patty became the captain after Roger. They did like 30-something years as captains in that company.
Wow.
So the continuity there. And Roger, he would never look to take any credit, but the company officers that came through there before me, when I was there, and after me, guys went on, battalion chiefs, deputy chiefs, and I always said to Roger, those guys' careers, they did a lot, but you were the instrumental guy in starting the tradition in that house. And Snyder Avenue, another place like Bravest Street, everybody's looking to put their son there coming out of Proby School. It's a great company, and to this day, they have a gathering every year on March 10th, 310 Day, down here in Rockville Center. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to be able to make it last year. The last few years I haven't been there. But the esprit de corps in that company, you sit back and you watch this next generation of guys, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Now, Pete Gansey's son is the captain there now.
Nice.
Young Pete, yeah. And his
the other
son,
one's a chief, right?
Yeah, Chris had been a lieutenant there,
mm-hmm.
as well. So, it's just was a great spot. So I was fortunate to have my 4 years there. Another place, made some great friendships to this day. I talk to Roger, a couple times a month. Wally, same thing. And that was a good spot.
Absolutely. And I got to ask you too, during those 4 years, you're seeing an interesting shift where the city's changing in a good way in the mid 90s to where fire duty's going down, but it's not dropping to where you got virtually no work. There's still work to go around. But on top of that, you get the medical runs too. I don't know if that was impacting the truck as much as it was the engine. But when CFRDs came into play in the mid 90s, was the truck getting a lot of that?
No, we didn't do that. The engine, that was
engine
mostly the engine took the brunt of that. Yeah. No, we didn't. Every once in a while we'd get called if there were multiple things, but it was predominantly engine. CFRD engines were impacted by that.
Yeah, I bet you that made you glad to stay in the truck. No,
yes,
we'll only go to fires. Thank you very much. And an MVA too here and there. Get an education job, but other than that, no medical. No,
yeah. No, it was a good spot, really good spot.
Absolutely.
Trying to think, there was just we had a lot of fires there there. And we tried to do a lot of, like the fast truck came into play, and I'm sure it's been fine tuned over the years since I'm out. But when we would roll up as a fast truck. Once again, Wally, he goes, I says, all right, we're gonna go in. He goes, Jimmy, I'm gonna look around and I'm gonna start positioning ladders. And I'll never forget, one day, I forget the chief in the 4-1, he goes, hey Lou, what's your guy doing? Putting ladders up. I'm like, why not, chief? If something goes wrong here real quick, in the PD, the more ladders we got around the building, more portable ladders, the better off we're going to be if somebody's got to get out of the building quick. And Wally kind of instituted that, and, he took it on himself, whoever was in rescue or whatever. I got a portable on the 2 side of the rear, and that was just great thinking. Like, come on, instead of everybody standing in the street and being reactive, here's a guy that was proactive. And I said, man, and we just started doing that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
You appreciate that, because why wait for the situation to get bad? You
Exactly.
know it's bad when you're getting there. Don't let it get worse. You're there to put a stop to it. You hear the term in baseball a lot when a team's on a losing streak. You and I are both Yankee fans. What was Andy Pettitte all those years? It seemed like whenever the Yankees were in a slump and they needed a guy to go out there, give them some innings, and help the Yankees get right, Andy Pettitte was that guy. So to apply it to the fire service, it's the same thing. We already know the situation's bad. It's a multiple alarm. Why let it get to a 3rd alarm? Why let there be injuries or fatalities if hey, there's something we can do to remedy this? And maybe the solution isn't there in that moment, but you work to find one, and you at least keep the situation under control until more resources can get there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yep. Yeah. That house was a good spot. And, we had the junkyards. When I had to drill, I like to do hands-on stuff. So we didn't have many vacants there, but we'd get our vacants. We'd go in and do some stuff with the junior guys. But we had the junkyards down in Canarsie there, so we knew one of the guys down there. We wanted to get a car, cut up a car, and I haven't spent in my early part of my time doing pin work with 175. I would always let's call down there and we'll get a couple of cars and get the guys cutting cars up. And, eventually we drilled a lot on that. And, we had a crazy intersection that we responded to. We called it Malfunction Junction. It was like Remsen Street, Kings Highway, Ralph Avenue. They all came together. And on a weekend, 9 times out of 10, we were getting called for a pin job.
Mm-hmm.
And
somebody, too much
allegedly. Yeah,
allegedly.
But, a lot of that drilling we did on extrication, guys became, very proficient at it, it just made my job easier, it's good stuff for sure. And that place, another place I made lifelong friends. I know I mentioned Roger, but there were a bunch of guys, Wally and a few other guys, Jimmy Gary, who we lost a few years back, was a dear friend of mine. Oh my God, I could go up and down the roster there. Just every guy was a superstar in that company. It's just it was a good fit. And then 98 rolls around. It's time to get promoted. I was like, I told Roger, I said, I'm turning this down. I'm not leaving here. I could do another 20 sitting here. But Roger goes, I don't think that'll go over too well with the boss at home. So, well, if I want, I got promoted to captain in March of '98. Mm-hmm. That was it was bittersweet living there, but I said, you know what? One door closes, another one opens in your career, and went down to headquarters. I worked down there for a year in captain's management. I worked in city planning, which was an interesting assignment. You got to you got to see the machinations of headquarters. Everybody wants to be in the firehouse for their whole career. Now, the job, the firehouse. What that program did, it opened your eyes to, one, you're going to become a captain now. So, that transition to being a captain, you spoke about it earlier, lieutenant, captaincy. Captain, to me, captain was a tougher rank than lieutenant, because captain, you're in charge of the house. You got 3 wives and 25 kids. So captain, you got to be the guy that, sets the tone. The men run the kitchen and run the house, but ultimately you're the guy that's in charge. But going to headquarters and working in city planning, you got to see how operations worked, how new construction, capital budget improvements, whatever was coming across our desk. We would interact with Chief Gansey, was chief operations at the time, Donald Burns, and Frank Carruthers. So to have the opportunity to sit in on these meetings on whatever the topic was, I'm saying to myself, I'm looking around the room and I'm like, I got a spot in here, and I'm a sponge taking in, their thoughts on whatever the topic was. And I was like, whoa, this is like, I was like, captain's management, what do you need that? I was like, best thing that ever happened. I learned so much in that short period of time that really helped me the rest of my career. You could know your way around headquarters if you needed something. Excuse me. Hey, I remember so-and-so from, being up on the 7th floor or the 8th floor. And it was a great idea, I was fortunate in that position. I'm sure some of the other positions, fire prevention, which was a good thing also. As long as you open your mind. I'm ready for it. Let me see what's here, But that was an interesting year. 6 months I was there, and then the other 6 months I was in a manpower pool, so you could work anywhere you wanted in the city, which was...
That must have been fun. That must have been cool.
I can go to 59 truck. I never worked in the Bronx. I never worked in Harlem. And I went to Staten Island. I said, I don't care. I'll go. Let me see everything. Well, let me see the whole kit and caboodle, And I said, I could do the rest of my career doing this. But, they finally put an end to that. And I went to the 13th Division in South Queens. I guess I was there for a short period of time, less than 6 months. And I got a phone call to go to Ladder 102. And it's like, I go back to Brooklyn. So Chief Cross, Captain was retiring. This guy, Jimmy Moore, he was retiring. He said, you want to come into 102? I said, when do I start? He said, Monday or Tuesday. So I said, yeah. I told my wife she wasn't too happy. She thought I'd be in Queens now, take it easy. And I was like, I'm not ready for that, still ready to go, working a busy shop. So I'm covering their UFO shortly thereafter, I'm still pinching myself, that I'm now here, and I'm working with Dennis Cross. He's the battalion commander. Rod O'Connor, Mike Canty, guys I worked with in Midtown, and it's like, this is great. I mean, Dennis Cross, that man, the knowledge that he had of that part of Brooklyn, he spent his entire career there. We lost him on 9/11. Tremendous guy. His best friend, Brian O'Flaherty, was the captain of Rescue 1 for like 10 years. They were firemen together in 105. They were lieutenants in 102 together. Brian becomes the captain of Rescue 1. Dennis gets promoted to captain, comes back to captain of 102. And those two guys, we lost Brian this past Saturday. He was dead for a year from 9/11. Brian, a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
But to be able to be in their company and to learn from them. Dennis was the type of guy, you ask him a question and he never answered you, but you got your answer, you know, one or two words. And it was, I used to go skiing with those guys. We would just talk and ride up about fire duty. Like I said to you earlier, when city planning, I'm in a room and I'm a sponge taking in all this information from these legends. And then, if I'm in the car going skiing with them or, going to a function, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I'm along for the ride with these guys. And they're just great guys, man. And it was just, to be in 102, that was like the icing on the cake, Unfortunately, I got hurt in November of '99. I got hit with a HUD seal, piece of plywood. Came down, got banged up pretty good. So, I was out for about 4 months, 5 months before I could get back. And I came back and I was never the same. Just, you're like cautious, before that it was like, let's go, not that you weren't aware of everything, but when you get injured, it
changes the whole perspective.
Yeah, you lost a little on your fastball, for a baseball analogy. But but my years in 102, I was the captain there on 9/11. But I will say the guys in that company, probably when I was captain there, probably the senior truck company in the job. The guys on the back step were all 15 to 22 years on the job. And, I was never more proud when we go out the door to work. It was just, we'd run into boxes and, Stevie Garrity's the captain of 111. We lost Stevie about 15 months ago. Brother Eddie died on 9/11. And I used to say to Stevie, I went out, I said, who's got it better than, look at us. This is, we're the captains in these two phenomenal companies and, the fire duty. And it's like, we're sitting on top of the world here, every guy, in 102, when we went out the door, total professionals, we'd pull up at a multiple, and the division was Phil Burns or Davey Corcoran, Jimmy, 102, it'd be like half a dozen companies waiting for an assignment. We get there, we go right in, do me a favor, get an exposure or do whatever. You got it, Chief, but, those guys, they were great guys. And the 11th Division, I got to know those guys pretty well in city planning. We worked out of Tillery Street. So that's 11th Division's quarters. So Chief Burns, Chief Corcoran, you'd have coffee with him in the morning. What are you guys doing in here? I can't tell you, Chief. I'll tell you, we got to kill you. But I built up a friendship with those guys. So on the fire ground, when I came back, it was like, I felt comfortable around them, respect for them. I mean, Dave Corcoran, I would tell him, why don't you come over for dinner, Chief? Mostly, what are you inviting the deputy for? This guy got a wealth of knowledge. He came one night, he had a Firehouse magazine with him. Threw the Firehouse magazine on the kitchen table. Pass it around. Look at the picture. What can you tell me about the picture? I tell you, Mike, that drill went on for about an hour and a half. Guys, yeah, I see this, see that. And then one thing turns to the next, to the next, and it's like an hour and a half later. I was like, I was like, he was leaving. I said, sure you don't want to stay? Now we'll go. I walked outside. I said, Chief, from a cover of a magazine, that was like an awesome drill. It just got everybody charged up. And, get dust off the pot. And, something very simple to that. And those guys, they were tremendous guys. But good stuff.
Mhm. I'm glad you
You
mentioned
know,
Dennis Cross because as a quick aside, for those that haven't seen the Naudet Brothers documentary, you can see him in that at one point, and this was pointed out where in the midst of all this chaos that's going on at the Trade Center that day, you don't see him panicking. You don't see him up in arms about anything. He's very calmly discussing operations with his men, what's going to be done, what's not going to be done. You would never know that something of this magnitude was going on just looking at it without context. And
well,
unfortunately,
that was Donald Burns in that clip with the French brother. I don't know if it was Dennis Cross. It was Donald Burns
I think they both made an appearance because
and
his wife
Oriole
had
Palmer. You know, he grabbed Oriole Palmer to take him into the South Tower. I know that one clip. It could be another one you're talking about. I don't recollect that.
Well, no, Burns
Yeah,
was in it too, but there was another
yeah.
one where Dennis Cross's wife saw the footage down the road, and she commented, I believe,
Yes,
in the New York
Joanne.
Times,
Yeah, yeah,
that seeing him in there was bittersweet, but that she was happy, she was proud of how calm he was under so much chaos.
yeah,
And listen, Chief
yeah,
Burns too, same thing. He wasn't
yeah,
panicking. They did what they
yeah,
had to do that day, and they
yeah.
made the
And then
ultimate sacrifice.
Dennis, Timmy Stackpole was with Dennis on 9/11, and the story, the Atlantic Avenue fire, when Timmy got burned real bad, and we lost Jimmy Blackburn, Scott LaPedra, Terry Quinn, a dear friend of mine. He was at this dinner back in October. He was the nozzle man. He survived, but Dennis, you see pictures of Dennis Cross at that Atlantic Avenue fire from the 5/7. He guy's all businessman. Tough guy. Tremendous chief officer. Tremendous individual. You know. But I know I'm reiterating that he knew that part of Brooklyn as good as anybody. It's
Experience.
as Brian O'Flaherty said, you could put a dime on a Hagstrom map, and that's as far as the companies he worked with in his career. They would always kid one another back and forth. Back when you had Hagstrom maps, as a covering officer, you bought a Hagstrom map to keep in your car to try to find the company where you were going. You didn't, you know what I mean?
Way before GPS. This was the 90s.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was
Exactly.
GPS back then. That's how you got around.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But no, that was a great spot. And then 9/11. That was a tough time for everybody. We lost over 20 guys in our battalion. Fortunately, I don't know why, grace of God, we didn't lose anybody in our house. But, we spent a lot of time down there. If you weren't in the firehouse, you weren't going to a funeral or a memorial service, you'd go down there looking for your brothers, You're trying to find Eddie Garrity. You're trying to find everybody. But, recovering the guys was bittersweet, but it was, at least you brought them home to their family,
Yeah, it was the right thing.
Yeah, to this day, it's still tough, when September 11th's coming around. You can feel the wave in August start to come over you, that it's just flooding back with all the memories. And, oh my God, it's just tough time. A quick story about
Sure.
9/11, and I'd like to move on from it.
Got it.
After 9/11, they were going to bring the families over to the site, and they had a platform built where the families could see what was going on. So we met at Marine 6 quarters in the Navy Yard. And I think there were maybe 6 captains that we went, and I was asked to go along on the trip. I knew some of the families, others I didn't know. But, the boat ride over there, we're interacting with them and speaking with them. And, it's kind of difficult, but once we got over to the site and they saw, the aftermath was really an emotional moment for all of us. I mean, the families, nobody wrote the book on how to handle this, This is uncharted waters, but, from that, I made contacts with, some of the families that, to this day I can still keep in touch with, around 9/11, I might send a text or just remembering them, But on the way back, everybody kind of split up, and we're up on the bow of the Marine unit. And there's a chaplain there. I don't recognize the guy. I know the chaplains from the FDNY. And this guy was from Oklahoma City, chaplain. And we'd start talking with him, and he's, he had lived through the Oklahoma City bombing, and he's rattling off things that are going to happen to you. And I'm looking at him. I said, you know what, Father, all due respect, you're talking about the FDNY here. I'm like, I'm not getting in his grill, but I'm like, nah, that's not going to happen here. Well, who knew? It hit us like a freight train. Everything that priest talked about, something in those following years, they almost came to fruition. It's like, unfortunately, but like I always say, it was the greatest job in the world except for one day. That one day sticks with all of us the rest of our lives. Lost a lot of good friends. It's tough day, but I think just leave it at that, Mike. Right?
Yeah, that's fine. You got it. And I do appreciate you telling that story, and I do appreciate you sharing the memories of the guys, because one thing the show always focuses on is we know how those gentlemen died, but it's important to focus on the good times with them. And I'm glad that you told those Dennis Cross stories tonight, for example. Eddie Garrity as well, so that people can get a look at who they were, not only as fire officers or firefighters, but as people too. We talked earlier about things coming full circle. And it's interesting because in 2003, after 4 years at 102, think about it, back in 1978, 1979, you go into the fire academy as a young probie trying to make the job. Now in 2003, you're going back as a 24-year veteran and a captain, and you're getting a chance, as you were telling me off the air, to give back to the job. It wasn't an easy decision, but as you told me, and I'll let you dive into it here, it proved to be the right one. So tell me about those last few months before you retired in 04, teaching the next generation.
Yeah, excuse me. And I just physically, I was beat up from when I got injured, and I just, I knew in my heart that, I just couldn't do the work anymore. And Stevie Garrity said, "Why don't you come out? We're looking for a captain of probie school." He was working out at the academy. And I was like, "You gotta be kidding me! I'm not doing this." I said, "I just want to retire." And I had 3 kids in college, driving one of my sons up to Providence College with my wife, and I had gone for the interview, and they said, "It's yours if you want it." And my wife's like, "Did you call him? Take the job, just try it." So I was like, So we got off 95 around Fairfield, Connecticut, and I made a phone call, and here I am a week later at the first class of like 375 brand new probies coming in, and I will tell you that year was a great experience for me. Having worked in headquarters, it kind of, had been privy to being there, and then the fire academy, you're dealing with headquarters. I got like 60 guys that are working with me out there, and it was a great place to transition from the firehouse, day to day, working 24s. So that year was, I learned a lot. The guys that I recruited to come out and teach there were great guys. They said, "Listen, this is our time. Come out. Let's give something. It's time to give back to the next generation, and let's prepare these brothers and sisters for their career. Let's give them a good foundation, and at the end of the day, let's leave it better than we found it." So, I probably did, I think it was like 1,200 probies came through in that year that I was out there. So I was proud of that, every once in a while I see guys, they come up to me, "Hey, Cap," and I'm like, "I don't know who you are." And he goes, "You were the captain when I came through probie school." A couple of guys, wrote me. I was going through some of my papers, and a guy wrote me a note. I don't know if I could find it here, but his words were so kind that I can't find it. you don't realize the impact you have on a young person coming in, and I found it today. I was like, I remember this kid. He's a bit of a knucklehead in the beginning, but he turned out to be a tremendous guy, and to see those rewards, I guess, right? It's what I'm trying to get across, that if you touched one or two people's lives, and you gave them a great foundation, and it was good. A lot of fun. A lot of fun that I had that opportunity at the end of my career,
Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter in life. I mean, there's two types of impressions that you can leave, a positive or a negative one. And there's an instance where you left. Either way, whoever you did that to, they're never going to forget it. In this instance, how great it is that it was positive. And all these years later, now that they're deep into their own careers, they never forgot that, Captain. Never forgot that.
Yeah. Got like a lot of my when everything was over, the reality that last day you're throwing your gear in a 55-gallon drum out at the quartermaster and saying, that's it, It was a little bittersweet, but having the opportunity to reflect back, and then today going through all my stuff and finding pictures and my kids, that were inside of my locker when they were little. It's like, wow, look at this stuff. Still kind of kept hung on to all this stuff, but shows like yours, the Getting Salty crew, you're bringing an old timer like me back to the job that I loved so much. That's a pretty cool thing.
Oh, well, it's an honor. I'm glad that I'm glad you were able to I can't speak now. I'm glad you were willing to come on and share these stories and look back on a career, because it's truly an honor for us. I think I can speak for Kevin and Louie and myself, both with Getting Salty in this show, where it's an honor for us to hear the stories, and these stories are ones that need to be told, in my case, both from the FD and the PD side, but it's never lost on me how fortunate I am to hear them. So thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight and sharing these. It's been great. The time's flown by.
I know. I just, I'm glad that you were very persistent in dogging me to come on,
It would be a good show if I did, and I was right.
Yeah. Thank you, pal.
Thank you. But you're not off the hook yet, because now, actually, in a sense, you are, because it's rapid fire time now. The first two questions, I would say it's 5 hit and run, but it's not, because you already answered uplifting. You already answered funniest with the elevator story. So instead, it's just 3 that I'm going to give you, since you answered the first 2. Right. And I'll jump right into the third one, which is your favorite tool on the rig, in reference to the truck.
Favorite tool on the rig is the Halligan tool.
That's a common.
Then the rabbit tools came out, but old school, you learn how to force doors with, having the irons in the job. It's the premier spot. And having a Halligan, there's nothing better than becoming very proficient with that tool. So I'm going to say the Halligan tool.
Well, I've seen it put to good use, of course, at the firehouse I work for. Can't disagree with that one. Not a bad pick at all there, Cap. Fourth, when you were working, and it could still apply now, even in retirement, but when you were working, let's say, you didn't want to eat in the firehouse, you wanted to go out for a meal, favorite restaurant or favorite, it could be anywhere, a little spot to eat in New York City.
We mostly ate in the firehouse, but the favorite restaurant in New York City has got to be Peter Luger's.
A lot of people told me that.
Yeah, and bring cash. They don't take credit card. I got an ATM machine there, but it's cash only. But Peter Luger's in Brooklyn, that's a premier restaurant in my eyes.
Yeah, there you go. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You ain't lying there, Cap. You ain't lying. And fifth and finally, you were in this position, of course, at the end of your career, but I'll still ask you the question. Let's say you can grab a probie right now. He or she just got on the job, just graduated. Given your 25 years of experience, if you could pull that probie to the side and give him some advice on the job, what would you tell them?
Keep your mouth shut. Keep your eyes and ears open. Step up and be the first one in the kitchen sink, or making a pot of coffee, or making sure the rig, you come in to work that rig, you know that rig the back of your hand, and be humble. Don't, if somebody tells you to do something, just do what you're told. Have a little humility, and I think that'll be a foundation for you as your career moves forward, you know?
Love it. Not only does that apply to the fire service, it applies to life in general. You
Yes,
have
it
two of
does.
these and one of these. So always listen more than you speak. Thank you,
Yeah,
Cap.
yeah.
Don't go anywhere just yet. We're going to talk off the air. But before we go, before I say goodbye to the audience, I should say any shout outs to anyone or anything that you would like to give.
There's one thing I want to talk about, Mike. We didn't touch on it.
Go right ahead.
It's about the health awareness. I was telling you before the show that 2 years ago I was diagnosed with cancer from 9/11, and needless to say, we've lost more than the 343 we lost that day. Unfortunately, we're still losing guys. But being diagnosed with cancer changes your outlook on life, and I can't say enough good things about the doctors and the nurses at Sloan Kettering. Luckily, I'm doing pretty well. I was at Sloan today for some more treatments, but I want to impress upon everybody, guys that are on the job, whether it's FDNY or throughout the country, we take care of the rig. The FDNY, we have preventive maintenance program. The ladders, we take our portable ladders off. We clean them every week. The tools, the apparatus, everything on the rig, the hose, and an engine company, clean and everything. And when I came on the job, you had single pane windows. The old school guys wouldn't wear a mask, or you wear a mask, and then when the fire's knocked down, they tell you take your face piece off, get acclimated to the smoke. Well, back then, the furniture in a house, the single pane windows, that fire would vent out already, and it was vented pretty good. But think about today's homes. There's the thermopane windows, the insulation factor, energy conservation. And everything in the house is plastic based, whether it's a carpet, you got acrylics, nylon, you got all crazy chemicals when that stuff catches fire. And wear your mask. Keep your mask on until you get out of the building. The whole goal of working in the department is to get out and enjoy the rest of your career and enjoy your pension. But what I want to tell the listeners, and when I see guys, since my diagnosis, go get checked out, go get scanned. Don't just do your World Trade Center medical. You got to go and get scanned every 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, my cancer, the only way it would have been detected is by getting scanned. And I'd always go for my World Trade Center medicals. I go to my doctors, and I went to see Rob Brown. Rob was on with Kevin and Louie, and I went to see Rob. My wife's like, "Will you stop? You go to these doctors all the time." Well, Rob saved my life. He found, this mass. The day before the 20th anniversary, he called me, told me, I got a massive tumor. A month later, I was in Sloan getting operated on. But just want to press upon guys. That's my mission now. Take care of yourself. Clean your gear. Take those hoods off. Get them decon. Clean your stuff. You come back from a fire. Make sure you clean. And it's, like, I'll repeat myself. For preventive maintenance for the apparatus, how about preventive maintenance for yourself throughout your career and even in your retirement? Constantly get medical evaluation. So if you do have something, you might catch it early enough, which I would impress that on everybody if they could do that. I'll leave it at that. Thanks I appreciate giving me that opportunity.
Not at all. No problem at all. Because you know what? When it comes to something like that, you can't repeat yourself enough. There's no such thing as redundancy. It's important. And Kevin talks about it too. That clean is the new salty. I know it's cool in the moment where, you're coming out of the fire scene, you got all the soot over you, but it's not so cool down the road if you got health problems and you're not able to enjoy that pension, enjoy your kids, enjoy your grandkids. So
Yeah.
listen to Captain Graham out there. Listen, I wasn't on the job. I can't relate. He was 25 years in the FDNY. So for all you young firefighters out there that will watch this, listen to what he says, do what he says, because it's going to help you down the road. Not, and as you mentioned, Cap, not just if you were on the FDNY, anywhere in the country. I encourage you all to heed what Captain Graham just mentioned. So thank you for sharing that with the audience tonight. I really do appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
This has been a great show. Like I said, stick around. We'll say our goodbyes off the air. I want to shout out everybody that tuned in tonight via YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Coming up next on the Mike DeNuevo podcast, no show this Friday. It'll be next Tuesday. That'll be our last show of the year. It's also going to be an FDNY show, volume 48 of the best, the bravest interviews with the FDNY's elite, with the guy who's still on the job, still getting it done. And that is Chief of Operations for the New York City Fire Department, John Esposito. Looking forward to that particular interview. It'll be a great way to end the year. What's been a great year for the Mike DeNuevo podcast. Took some time off, came back in June, but boy, have we hit it hard in these last 6 months. And that'll be a great show to round out 2023 with. In the meantime, on behalf of Captain Jim Graham and producer Vic, this has been volume 47 of the best, the bravest interviews with the FDNY's elite. I'm Mike Colón, and we will see you next time. Take care. Have a great night, everybody.